Hello everybody, SuperTim101 here, and today we're going to be talking about what happened in the latest patch. Something really cool was given to us by PGI, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit because it really changes the nature of the game. Not the base gameplay mechanics or anything like that, but it really changes the way you go about your builds, and since I'm all about doing build reviews, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So they reset the skill tree, and what that means is that the skill tree is no longer sort of this web of skill nodes, but actual lines of skills that you can select. So we're going to go through that real quick and just show you how to do that, as well as what I think some of the best skills are, and maybe some ways to optimize your mechs. Some of this is theory crafting, because I haven't played with it a whole lot, but some of it might change in the future in terms of what I think is best, what I think will work the best. But I wanted to throw something out there to just go over my current theory on how to build mechs. So why don't we go ahead and head to the Mechlab for this Jumpy Boy Atlas K3 and hit skills. When you first click on skills on a mech that you haven't modified yet since the update, you will be given this pop-up window, Orphan Skill Nodes Fixed. And it gives through all the skills basically that it has removed because since the skill tree was all connected to everything, and you could pick up, for instance, cooldown node 5 without having it connected to any of the other cooldown nodes, it might not be connected to the new skill tree. So it's going to refund all of these nodes and basically reset your skill tree once you click on skills. And so this gives you an opportunity to basically redo all of your skill tree. So once you clear that pop-up window and have that ability to reset your skill tree, you'll have a bunch of skill nodes available to you, skill points available to you over here. I've already done this atlas, but if you haven't, you'll have a bunch of skills that are refunded to you that will help you reskill without spending too much money. In fact, they really reduce the amount of money it takes to convert XP into skill points, so it doesn't actually cost you as much as before and helps with the grind. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the layout of the new skill tree. It's no longer this web that kind of went in all different directions, and you had to take nodes that you might not wanted to have because you needed to get certain nodes. Like laser duration was at the bottom of the skill tree, and you had to kind of really invest in firepower to even get to the laser nodes. Now, all you do is just click at the bottom, boink, and you have all the skill nodes for laser duration. Same thing is true for like cooldown, right? So cooldown's its own tree now. You can click at the top to get rid of it, and at the bottom, booyah! That is so cool. You just get all the skills that you need just by clicking at the bottom. That is possibly the coolest feature of this whole skill tree change, I think, is just the ability to click on and off of things that you want. So it's way easier than clicking node by node by node by node, and it's because these things are in lines now and in pods, it's possible to do that. So take advantage of that as you're reskilling. Some of the comments before this happened was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to reskill all of my mechs. Well, the ability to just do that makes it so easy to reskill the mechs, and the cost is so much lower. It actually isn't bad at all. So that's kind of the mechanics of it. Now I wanted to get into what I think are some of the ways to optimize builds. And like I said earlier, this is theory crafting at this point. These are what I think might be the best ways to do this. This might change as we get into more games and as we do just try more builds out. But first, with firepower, you have the opportunity to put more points into firepower just because it's so much easier to get all the nodes that you want. I like to always get all of heat gen on most of the mechs because heat is a super limiting factor of how often you can fire. So you want to be as heat efficient as possible. So get all of the heat gen nodes. You also want to fire as much as possible, so get all of the cooldown nodes. That's right, all the heat gen and all the cooldown nodes. You want that is the main contributing factor to your firepower. How often you can fire is basically tied to how much damage you'll be throwing downrange. So you want to keep your heat under control as much as possible, and have your guns off of cooldown as much as possible. So those two trees I would get maximum on nodes, and then pick up the skills that you need for your particular weapon groups. Now this atlas has all 3 weapon types: lasers, ballistics, and missiles. So I went ahead and picked up the ones that I needed. Laser duration for the medium lasers, magazine capacity for the autocannon, and all of the missile nodes here. So it's much easier to just pick those up. You don't have to go down weird trees to do it. Just go ahead and pick them up. Again, you can click on, click off. It's so easy. The next thing I want to talk about is survival, of course. Now, it's just click on, click off on skeletal density and armor hardening. I see no reason why every mech can't run full skeletal density and armor hardening at this point. Every mech should potentially be getting both of these skill trees: skeletal density and armor hardening. I don't see necessarily a reason to add any reinforced casing. It just doesn't add enough of a baseline percentage to get to where you need to go. 12%, is that enough of a drop? I don't think it is. So I took out all reinforced casing. Shock absorbance, you're just not getting that much damage on your legs. This might be helpful for light mechs that are really super jumpy, like a spider. Maybe you pick up some shock absorbance so that you don't destroy your legs immediately. But it is, again, easy to just pick that up. So do that. I don't run AMS on this mech, but it's, again, easy to pick up the 2 AMS nodes. That's in survivability. If you run AMS, even if it's just one, I would suggest getting these 2. It's just 2 nodes, and you're not wasting stuff on these kind of nodes anymore. Easy to pick up AMS. If you run even 1 AMS, I would suggest picking up the AMS nodes. But yeah, skeletal density and armor hardening, full tree, absolutely every mech. For mobility, this is a assault mech, so I'm not running a bunch on here, but it's really easy to get your kinetic burst, which makes you accelerate faster. But note here that speed tweak is now connected to kinetic burst. Okay, so you have to take basically the full kinetic burst tree to get full speed tweak. So your mileage may vary on how much speed tweak you want to make. Most light mechs like to run a full speed tweak tree, so having higher acceleration is actually not a bad thing. So keep that in mind. You have to get the full kinetic burst tree to get the full speed tweak tree, if that is connected. That's a thing that light mechs will likely want to get. Since speed tweak is a percentage, again, like all of these things, it only adjusts your baseline. So if your baseline speed is crappy, it's not going to actually bump you up that much. So just keep that in mind in terms of like, why don't I speed tweak my assault mechs? Because for the most part, assault mechs are slow, and speed tweaking them is not going to make them unslow. It's just going to make them slightly less slow, not completely unslow. Anyway, you can easily take both hard break and anchor turn for that mobility in terms of turning, stopping, starting. I also think light mechs should take a full hard break and anchor turn tree. For torso speed, torso yaw, and torso pitch, sometimes if you're a really clunky mech that can't look up or down very well, torso pitch might be worth it. I don't really see necessarily any benefit to having torso speed or torso yaw right now. There might be some mechs that you're like, I really want to twist faster. That might be what you need to do with that. But yeah, so keep that in mind. I don't think these 2 trees are super helpful at this point, unless you want to turn a little bit faster and to twist and shield with your arms. But really, these 3 here are the ones you're going to be picking up as a light mech that wants to go fast and speedy. I don't really play with the jump jet tree very much. This is something very niche, something that, again, like a spider would run, or other really jumpy mechs that want to take advantage of this. I think they're going to be redoing this at some point, so I would stay away from jump jets unless you're really being very memey. But yeah, so stay away from that. In terms of operations, I always love getting full cool run and full heat containment on my mechs even before the skill tree change. So I would suggest doing that for, unless your mech is just super heat efficient already, close to the 2 out of 2. This is just going to help. Heat containment gives you a higher heat capacity, so you can shoot longer before you get to your heat bar, the top of your heat bar, and cool run helps you dissipate heat more. Now, the numbers say, from other people who run the numbers, that heat gen actually has a bigger impact on your heat, so that's true. But with the firepower tree the way it is now, we can get a full heat run or heat gen tree, and so we still have points left for full cool run and full heat containment. In terms of these other trees that we have, quick ignition, I don't see a reason unless you're like super good at tactical shutdowns or something. Not really needed for it. Improved gyros, it can help if you're a heavy Gauss mech. It helps with that shake, as well as being hit by enemy fire. I just think it's really super niche, and while it helped in the other skill tree, I don't think it's necessary in this new skill tree. I actually did test out hill climb a little bit. I was wondering if hill climb was good for slower mechs, and I didn't see it was a very marginal difference in terms of how much having this 15% hill climb help with climbing hills, even for the slower mechs. So I don't think it's necessarily worth it. And then speed retention actually might be good for light mechs. So what speed retention does is cap your speed at 50 kilometers per hour. Sorry, if you get legged. And so again, your mileage may vary here. Some people like to have the speed retention on their lights in case they get legged to give them a little bit more survivability. Some people say like as soon as you get legged, you're basically dead. So what's the point? It might be better for some speedy medium mechs that have a little bit more armor. So test that one out a little bit. It could be effective, but again, your mileage might vary. So let's move on to sensors. Sensors. And this is where it gets really cool, I think. You can get full seismic sensor on one skill tree. You have to get the target info gathering skill tree here, but target info gathering is already super useful. So I would max this out as much as possible. Maybe not every mech needs the full seismic sensor for this. For instance, this mech I'm only running the one, but to get the full seismic sensor is really easy now, and I would suggest trying to do that on most of your mechs. And then the target info gathering gives you a faster time to get the paper doll, your enemy's paper doll, so you can see where to shoot. Knowing where your enemy is damaged is critical. Information is ammunition. So this whole tree is great. Max this out on as many mechs as you can. Just information is so useful. This is so useful. And then in terms of sensor range, ECM, and radar, these are all tied together on this particular tree. So if you're ECM mech, you get these two nodes. You have to, again, max out the sensor range tree to get the ECM nodes, and this is an ECM mech, so I put those in here. If you're not an ECM mech and you want full radar deprivation, it is now easier than ever to do that. You just max out your sensor range tree and get these 5 radar deprivation nodes. This, I think, is becoming way more common, which is sort of a ninja nerf to lock-on weapons, which honestly isn't necessarily a bad idea. No one likes getting lermed from across the map with no way to fight against it. So think about maxing out your radar deprivation. The old way of doing it was getting at least 60%, and even that was pretty effective against lerms and other lock-on weapons. And getting 100% now is super easy. They actually, I wouldn't be surprised if they changed this a little bit, but nevertheless, it's easier to get radar deprivation now, 100%. And I've seen it already in some games where it's just people are blinking in and out of cover, and you can't keep track of them. Again, information is ammunition. If you don't know where your enemy is, you can't shoot them. So next on sensors, we've got target decay, which is good for LRM mechs, right? Unfortunately, it's not a counter to radar deprivation, because radar deprivation uses sort of like a baseline, right? It doesn't it's not affected by these nodes here of your enemy. So, but certainly pick these up if you are a LRM mech. You need as much time if they're not running radar deprivation, which again seems silly at this point. But this increases the time you have them targeted. This might be good for light mechs who are running in and out of things and want to keep their mech targeted. If you run behind them or something like that, and have your back to them, it'll keep them targeted so you know where they are. And advanced zoom, which a lot of people use for sniping. I never really liked it because it throws off my mouse sensitivity. But I might actually, test it out more these days because it's really easy to get. It's just one node. All you need is 1 point now instead of having to go all the way down the sensor tree. So if you're a sniper, Gauss, or PPCs, or even large lasers, you might pick that up. It's an easy node to get. Then moving on to the auxiliary tree. And so it's easier to get your consumables now because they're not necessarily caught up in these other things here. But certainly look at getting your consumables. I still run just that one value slot for a lot of my mechs. But I'm probably going to revisit that a little bit to see how easy it is, what nodes I can remove from the other parts of the tree to pick up maybe another cool shot or another UAV on some of my light mechs, things like that. Now it's easier than ever to max out capture assist. This is something you might do with your spiders or your other light mechs when you don't maybe need as much firepower. Potentially, you could shave some nodes in there to get your capture assist up. And then if you're a narc mech, it's easy to run these two narc nodes right here. So that is the new skill tree. I think it is an amazing change for Mechwarrior Online. It's so much easier to skill a mech. It's cheaper now, and however, it is going to lead to more min-maxing. Now that you can have a full firepower tree or a full survivability tree, it's going to lead to higher values for damage and higher values for armor. So there's going to be more min-maxing involved, but everyone's going to be a little bit more on the level playing field with that because it's easier to skill up mechs. It doesn't take as much money to do so. So I think this is a really good change for Mechwarrior Online. I'm excited to jump into it, and yeah, so that's my thoughts on the skill tree. I really like it. I hope you like it. And if you like this video, please leave a like and have a great day.